la 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 la. This is Femi Anikula Pukuti. You're watching Susan Rice on African West. Keep watching.
I urge all of you who know what it means to be African, all of you who may not know what it means to be African, all of you who are on the journey of awakening, all of you who need enlightenment and continued support, to tune in to Africa Rise with Susan West. And to you, Susan, as a mother, I want to thank you for all the great work that you are doing to uplift us, to continue to engage us, to inform us, and also challenging us to engage in those conversations, difficult as they may be. You are taking us there. So Susan West, Africa Rise, keep up the great work.
Africa Rise with Susan West.
Hello, hello, hello. A very warm welcome to all our friends, viewers, stakeholders, fans of Africa Rise with Susan West. It is, of course, another beautiful Sunday, and I am super excited to, come on live again. Today marks 1 year. Yes, 1 year that we have been broadcasting Africa Rise with Susan West. And of course, to mark it, we wanted to bring no other person than Professor P.L.O. Lumumba. And of course, we are a bit running behind schedule simply because there are technical issues. Some of these, problems you can really do nothing about, So we've been trying to get Professor on, and we're unable to get him on, but he will be joining us via WhatsApp. So for everyone else who is watching, if you haven't liked, followed, or subscribed to our channels, please do so. It is Africa Rise TV on YouTube. It is Africa_Rise.tv on Instagram, and SWOB21 on Facebook, SWOB21 on Facebook. And of course, today we're also broadcasting to the Pan-African Daily TV, our family, our extended family. So please do well to join us via all these channels. But without taking too much of our time, I will be calling Professor P.L.O. Lumumba on WhatsApp. Unfortunately, you will not be able to see his face, but you will hear his voice. And we will just do a few minutes, as much as we can take. All right? So give me a moment to call the Prof. Hello, sir.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm very well, sir. Good afternoon. Happy Sunday to you. First, I want to apologize.
9 p.m. at night in Kenya, so the listeners should be aware of this geographical reality.
Right, absolutely. Sorry for the mix-up and the technical issues, but we're glad to have you, however. So really quickly, I just want to go ahead and take a quote from the late Patrice Lumumba, who says, "The colonialists care nothing for Africa for her own sake." And I read that quote to then ask since we're running through the program today, what is our fate as Africans? Should we lose faith in a predicament that we find ourselves where Pan-Africanists or leaders on the African continent would try to walk away from doing things according to the norm and try to do right by their people, are seen to their early grave? And of course, for those other countries who have ceaseless wars and terrorism in their countries, that it becomes has become a discouraging thing for young people who don't know very much about the history of Africa, and hoping that today's Pan-Africanists will be able to inspire them to have faith and hope and the way forward.
In answer to that question, let us remind ourselves that Africans are not unique in any sense. If you look at the history of the world, what we call the world wars have been fought amongst Europeans. And in that regard, therefore, to say that Africans are the only people who have problems is too much. hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir. Go ahead.
There are wars, and there have been wars in Europe, and there are still wars in Europe, in Asia, in all parts of the world. And Africa, as the cradle of human civilization, can never afford the worry of giving up hope. You are enslaved, you are colonized, we are neo-colonized. And Patrice Emery Lumumba is not saying anything new. What he's saying was said by Marcus Garvey, said by Pixley Kaisa Kaseme of South Africa. It was said by Williams of Trinidad and Tobago. It was said by Kwame Nkrumah. It was said by Ahmed Bedbella. It was said by Julius Kambarage Nyerere, Modibo Keita, Ahmed Sekou Touré. What we must realize as civilization is that our long-term health demands that we believe in ourselves. The problem of Africa is our low self-esteem. The belief by some of us that we do not have the intellectual wherewithal to compete with the Caucasians or the Asians. The day we exercise the ghost of low self-esteem, that is the day that Africa is going to realize the potential.
Right. A minimum of comfort is necessary for the practice of virtue. This is another quote by Patrice Lumumba, late Patrice Lumumba. How can Africa, with all the terrorism going on in some of at least 15 countries out of the countries that we have on the continent, are faced with wars or terrorism? So how can we get our people to the point where we create the sort of wealth that gives us the comfort to practice the sort of virtue as Africans that we are supposed to have? When countries like Nigeria, for example, is now thrown into the sort of turmoil that it's facing today, countries like Mozambique, Somalia, what is your reaction to the incessant fight and troubles and unrest that we keep seeing in this dispensation on the African continent?
Susan, you may know, as you should, that when the neo-colonial project was terminated, its immediate successor or the terminated, its immediate successor was the neo-colonial project. And the intention of the erstwhile colonizer was that Africa must continue to be in a constant state of conflict so that she can continue to be in a constant state of susceptibility to exploitation. That is why you see the hands of France in the Sahel. France is alive and well in Burkina Faso, in Cameroon, in Gabon, in Togo, in Benin, in Mali, Mauritania, in Algeria, in Morocco. France is there. They do not want Africa to remain in peace. The British, in their own very subtle way, are also present. The Chinese are present. So what can we do and what must we do? The individuals such as you have mentioned, Patrice Emery Lumumba, who was exterminated in 1961, had seen these because the Belgians had already choreographed a independence environment in which they would continue to be dominant. And you have seen that whenever any African rises who is enlightened, what they do is to eliminate that or to neutralize that Africa. They eliminated Patricia Emery Lumumba. They eliminated Sylvanus Olympio. They neutralized Kwame Nkrumah. They neutralized Modibo Keita. They neutralized Ahmed Ben Bella. They tried to neutralize Julius Kambarage Nyerere. They tried to neutralize Agostino Neto. They eliminated Samora Moses Marshall. They tried to neutralize all these good individuals, and of course, they eliminated Thomas, Noel, Isidore, Sankara. So what must we do? What we must do is to recognize that our long-term health lies in our ability to create an army of young men and women, so that when they eliminate any one of us, we are capable of reproducing ourselves in order to tell them, as Mahatma Gandhi used to say, that they can take my body, but they cannot take my spirit.
Absolutely. They can kill the body, they cannot kill the spirit. How do we then go about motivating, inspiring, and bringing about these young people who should take over from the leaders who are being eliminated? And why and how are we going to protect ourselves from these assassinations and killings that happen to our Pan-African leaders?
History has demonstrated that, Susan, not once, not twice, but times without number, that unity is the antidote. Unity of purpose, unity of mission, and giving our voices the oxygen of publicity. What you are doing through your medium now is to give the oxygen of publicity to men and women who have long recognized that it is through the word, because you are exploits.
Right. And in quoting you, in one of your quotes, you mentioned you do not respond to a mosquito bite with a hammer. At this point of our history, would you describe Africa's problems as a mosquito bite or a tsunami of floods of anarchy? And of course, if the answer was the latter, how should we then, what should we resort to? Or how should we handle it?
African problems, Susans, are more than a mosquito bite. Our problems are elephantine, and our reaction must be nuclear. It behooves us to recognize that once again, in a manner that is reminiscent of the scramble for Africa, reminiscent of what happened in 1884 and 1885 when they created the Bismarckian boundaries. Once again, there is a new scramble for Africa. The Chinese are here. leaders. Today, you and me know that in terms of natural and other resources, there is not a continent to be compared to the continent of Africa. Throughout history, and that is why all the monumental battles and wars and all massacres have always taken place in the continent of Africa. We don't say it as loudly as we should. We talk about the Jewish Holocaust, 6 million dead, but we don't talk about the 15 million dead killed by King Leopold of the Belgians. So our salvation lies in our unity and unity of purpose.
Absolutely. We gained independence on the African continent many, many decades ago. Still, for some countries, it feels like we're still entrapped in what is called neocolonialism. But this time around, in the physical, it is an enslavement of us by our own people. Another quote from Patrice Lumumba says, without dignity, there is no liberty. Without justice, there is no dignity. And without independence, there are no free men. How can we begin to free the minds of these people in positions of authority who are of generations that seem to be holding Africa's children in shackles?
Patrice Emery Lumumba made that statement when he was age 36. And he made that statement because he had recognized that Joseph Kasavubu and Mobutu Sese Seko had long been captured by the Western powers. And I can't agree more with Patrice Emery Lumumba. But your question is, how can we liberate ourselves from the shackles? You know, I was reading a quote from a Frenchman, because knowledge is universal, René Descartes, and this is what he said in Latin: Dubito et cogito, cogito ergo sum. I doubt, therefore I think, therefore I am. We must, as Africans, begin to think and to appreciate our ability to think. And media, and Susan, I keep on telling you this, I don't know whether you listen to me as you should. Your media is one of the ways in which we are going to open our minds. Carter G. Woodson, writing in 1933 in the United States of America, writes a book called The Miseducation of the Negro. And he says that in order to realize our potential, we must re-educate ourselves. Martin Luther King Jr., speaking in 1963, says, the mind is the standard of the man. Malcolm X, speaking in 1968, says, the day we begin to think, that is the day we begin to be free. And you go back into history, and Marcus Garvey says the same things. Pixley Isaac Seven says in 1906, when he talks about the regeneration of Africa, the mind is the standard of the man. Ngugi wa Thiong'o of Kenya says, we must decolonize our mind. The mind is the standard of the man. And in latter day circumstances, you and me have an obligation to talk to young minds, to remind them that if Africa is to be great, we must change our minds. We must do that which is in the best interest of the continent. That is all we can do. That is the contribution we can make. The rest, we can play our part, but we cannot determine the results. The means must justify the end, Susan. The means must justify the end.
Absolutely. The mind is the standard of the man. Absolutely, I agree. But when we have on the continent countries that have heads of states or presidents who have been there for 30 years and 40 years. Some of them we still celebrate as Pan-Africanists because to an extent they've done very well, i.e. the late president of Chad, who was a bit polarizing because he was there for over 30 years, even though he was beloved by many. We have in Cameroon, and then we have in Uganda. We deal with such things. How we take over the affairs of so that we bring about the desired change.
History is consistent in its consistency. History demonstrates to me that those who seek that those who desire justice must always recognize that justice is an intergenerational struggle, each generation playing its part. I hear you when you talk about Paul Biya in Cameroon and that he should be removed. He's been there for donkey years. From a human perspective, he too shall go. I hear you when you talk about Nguema in Equatorial Guinea. You are asking, what must young people do? Young people must agitate. Young people must use the media that is available to them to ensure that these individuals go. Amazonia, which is in my heart, I look forward to the day, and there are Amazonians in prison now, and I've been trying to have them adopted as prisoners of conscience. I look forward to the day that all young Africans, during a month of rage, not a week of rage, not a day of rage, a month of rage, will congregate in the embassies in the world, demanding that all these dictators go, so that we have the visual effect, so that all these media, whether it is BBC or P.L.O or Radio Deutsche Welle or Radio France or Al Jazeera, will only have one image: young Africans across the continent and across the world demonstrating rage at these dictators. If we do that for 1 month, I can tell you that all these dictators will run away. Easier said than done, but it
Absolutely easier said than done, but it must be done. And of course, came via what to take this final moment to please go ahead and talk to us and tell us why there is still light at the end of the tunnel, regardless of the wars that we see on the continent of Africa, attacks that we have on the different countries that I have mentioned earlier, regardless of lives that have been lost who are Pan-Africanists, people have motivated young Africans to know that there are possibilities and that it is possible for Africa to rise up. So please go ahead and talk to us and tell us how that light is not so far away to the end of at the end of the tunnel.
In 1979, a young South African was tried by the apartheid regime and sentenced to death. That young was Solomon Mahlangu. And when he was asked to give his final statement, he said that he had been a victim and that he had been sentenced to death, and he told the white judge that I will die, but there will be many Solomon Mahlangus after me. 1979, after him were many Solomon Mahlangus. I'm now telling Africans that even if they kill young Africans, there will always be many Africans. And those many Africans with only one conviction: to free Africa politically, economically, and otherwise. Because Africa does not think in terms of years. Africa in terms of
Powerful. Africa thinks in terms of generation. Africa does not think in terms of years, but in terms of generation. And on that note, I will let you go, Professor Lumumba. I do hope that next time we will not have to deal with these technical issues, and that we will see your face as you speak to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. Be blessed.
There you have it. It's my apologies. There is so little we can do with these technology, but I will take a few read from some of our comments, as I usually will do on Africa Rise. And so on YouTube, I have Woken Endless says, sometimes it makes me so mad to see our people running away from who they are to look like the same people that had enslaved and colonized us. Why would we want to look like them after all they did to us? Absolutely. Kwame Abogie Aboagie says, Nkrumah, Lumumba, Malcolm, and Sankara made their feelings clear that Africa is not for sale. Absolutely. And Benga Daniel from Facebook says, it's greediness and selfishness for any president to occupy office for eternity, refusing to give others the privileges God gave them to serve. That is the truth. But they, we as young people have to take the bull by the horn. We have to take what belongs to us and repair that Africa that we so love and desire. We will not leave Africa the way we have met it. We will not. We will not allow these people, our fathers, these people that we love and respect, most of them, but still they cannot understand that times have changed. The world, fresher mind and thinking is what we need on the African continent to turn things around. So Mink 305 says, Organic African Paradigm channel has lectures that will everyone to just listen. Ah, fantastic, fantastic. And I will take as many comments as I can before we call it a day. King Leopold Fuzzy Tom says, King Leopold of the Belgium is abasement to history, and let's play where he belongs. Absolutely. And there's so many comments. Sorry if I don't take yours. I'll just take the ones that just pop, Obi-Man, the mind is the standard of the man indeed. Absolutely. That was a powerful one, and it's profound. The mind is the standard of the man. Your mind, you cannot go beyond who you are, and who you are is in your mind. Absolutely. So as Africans, we should begin to think big. We should begin to see our in places where we and as a community, so that we can begin to propagate and project ourselves to where we want to be as Africans. And of course, on the continent, as countries that a few years ago nobody would have imagined will be in the state where they are today, i.e., Nigeria is disappointing the rest of Africa. I am a Nigerian. I am heartbroken with Nigeria. There is so much that has been going on in Cameroon and in the Ambazonia region, and we have been trying to see how things can justice can prevail on that land, and now Nigeria has been added to that place, and the place is boiling. But I want to assure us and encourage us as Africans on the continent and in the diaspora that from this moment that we recognize that we are Africans. Yes, we might be holding different passports that calls us a different name, maybe Nigerian, Ghanaian, South African, Tanzanian. Howbeit, We are all Africans. Therefore, if we recognize and bring our voices together and speak against the ills that happen in every single African country, the moment we put our voices together and not perceive problems happening in Mozambique as a Mozambican problem because you're not Mozambican, or problems happening somewhere else, the moment we recognize that, even for those in the diaspora, of course, even the African Americans and the Caribbean Africans, the moment we understand that our fates are tied together, regardless of whether we are on the continent or outside of the continent, we begin to put our voices together and raise our voices against every bad leadership, every ills and evils that is happening on the continent. The moment we do that, then our voices will reverberate and resonate and sound so loud that it cannot be ignored, that the world will shake and the world will its knees unless us, like the Bible says, let my people go. They will let us go. We will set ourselves free somehow, but it will begin from the disabusement of our minds, taking away the shackles of ignorance from our minds. So on that, I just want to say a very big thank you. It was a disappointment that we couldn't see Professor Lumumba, but we heard him clearly. And though we could have had him for longer, but we chose to let him go because, of course, the time is very late back in Kenya. And so thank you for watching. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for all you do, all you who are watching on Africa Rise TV, on our page, and also on the Africa Daily TV, our extended family. We love you all. If you haven't liked, followed, or subscribed to Rise TV on YouTube, it is Africa_Rise.tv on Instagram and Swab21 on Facebook. It is scrolling on the screen. I love you all. God bless you. It's been such a wonderful conversation. It is Mother's Day. I just want to take this opportunity to wish all the beautiful mothers on the continent and in the diaspora happy Mother's Day, regardless of whether you're a birth mother or an adopted mother or just a nurturing mother. You are all mothers and you're doing wonderful. Bless you. Continue to raise a generation that will change the fate of Africa. God bless you. I love you. And see you next weekend. Bye-bye.